In simple instinctive behavior, a sensory impulse enters a nervous system, travels in a straight line, and triggers an immediate reaction. But human self-awareness shatters that linear flow, replacing it with a complex system of definitions that vary wildly depending on which academic discipline is describing the observer. Sigmund Freud mapped the self as a tripartite struggle, a system where the ego must constantly mediate between the base impulses of the id and the rigid moral constraints of the superego. Contemporary neuroscience views these same processes as distributed physical networks, while Sufi philosophy envisions a vertical hierarchy where the soul climbs through specific stages of moral refinement. While these disciplines describe overlapping layers of the human experience, they lack a shared operational language to connect an abstract moral hierarchy to a physical neural network. The Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM, provides that bridge. Under this framework, identity functions as an active, multi-layered computational system designed specifically to process, route, and integrate neural and emotional strain. Proving this model requires moving beyond abstract theory to observe the self actively calculating high-level strain in a closed environment. We find this data in a specific, highly documented dream case study centered on 3 distinct variables: the subject's birthplace, their own father, and a lack of societal recognition. In this context, dreams function as subconscious strain rebalancing simulations, where we can track the operational logic of the self in real time. The dream begins in the subject's birthplace, a constrained, economically poor area of Tehran known as Tehranchi Alley. Despite the poverty of the environment, the dreamer experiences a profound sense of pride rather than shame regarding these origins. This constrained alleyway represents the subject's origin node, a high-density storage site for identity memory and deep-rooted emotional strain. As the dream progresses, the subject watches the alleyway undergo a renovation. The original walls are carefully preserved, but the mapping is corrected and regularized. The prefrontal cortex utilizes the imagery of the past to run a live cognitive restructuring process. This is the ego optimizing the geometry of the subject's identity space, rebuilding the past so it becomes structurally navigable alongside the present. Identity is preserved here not by deleting origin strain, but by integrating the memory into a fairer, more coherent internal map. The dream then pivots from spatial architecture to lineage, manifesting a sequence of the father's achievement certificates. A critical formatting error appears on the first certificate. Although it is golden and signifies high value, the father's name does not fit the template, forcing the text to spill out into the margins. The father's intrinsic value exceeded the rigid, predefined structures society built to measure his worth. This realization creates a sharp internal tension, as the subject discovers the father's creative excellence, while simultaneously remembering a life spent in poverty and a difficult death. The Brain Kinematics Model tracks this conflict as delta E, the difference between expected merit-based reward and actual life outcome. This injustice strain was too large for society's framework to process, leaving his value unresolved. When the dreamer detects the improper formatting on the certificates, we are watching the superego perform an ethical calibration, identifying a systemic failure to record the truth. The cascading pyramidus certificates that follows represents the delayed, compounding weight of that unrecognized value finally being processed. This high-level ethical computation attempts to reconcile the father's inherent worth with the material reality of his social neglect. The dreamer acts as an integrative hub, holding several conflicting perspectives within a single system. This multi-agent self-network tracks strain flow between 4 nodes: the integrator, the father, society, and birthplace. The birthplace connection processes deep origin strain. The father line carries inherent dignity. Tension between father and society marks systemic failure, where recognition missed merit. Processing this network requires the Eden transformation, an evolutionary phase shift in neural dynamics that moved humanity beyond instinct into self-aware, recursive conflict. A functioning self requires this imbalance. It must hold the contradictions of pride and injustice in a continuous loop to generate a coherent identity. The dream was calculating a complex balance: origin poverty plus inherited value plus social injustice equals identity rebalancing. Solving this requires moving up Ibn Arabi's 7 levels of the self. The lowest tier demands immediate discharge. The middle tiers parse the injustice of the father's certificates. The highest tier integrates these contradictory strains into wisdom, holding the tension. Freud's functional mediators, neuroscience's distributed networks, and Ibn Arabi's ethical hierarchy all describe this same vertical gradient of strain regulation. This system leaves the past intact while reconstructing the internal narrative so the strain can be carried with dignity rather than fracturing into shame. The self is a multi-layered kinematic continuum. Our dreams are the engines where we process the mathematical friction of existence to build an ethical identity.